Yo, what's happening people, and welcome back to the channel. So those of you that are regulars to the channel will know that Arturia are one of my favourite plugin companies, and I use their stuff a lot on this channel. So it probably won't come as a surprise that I was super excited about the release of the 9th version to their V collection. This update's come with a ton of new features and instruments, making this already goated group of plugins even better. In this video, I'm going to be going over the new synth plugins as well as the fully fleshed out versions of the augmented series. If you're new to the channel, then please consider hitting the subscribe button and click the bell next to it too, so you can be notified every time that I upload. Now let's take a look at these plugins. In the newest update to the V collection, Arturia went crazy, adding 4 brand new instruments to the collection. The 2 that I'm most excited for are the augmented strings and the augmented voices plugins. They've also added their own versions of the Korg MS-20 synth and the SQ-80 synth. We've also seen a complete overhaul of the Prophet synth, and this has now been split into 2 instruments. And if that wasn't enough, they've also rebuilt the Piano V plugin, making it better than it already was. So I'm going to start by going over the piano and what's changed about it. So the first thing that I noticed is that the GUI is looking a bit different, and to be honest, I think I like it. The Piano 2 had a nice GUI that was easy enough to navigate, but they've just simplified this a little bit more in the V3. On the main screen of the GUI, we've got this drop down box where you can pick the model of piano that you're going to be using. Then next to this, we've got these dials that can be used to control the dynamics, the brightness, and even the reverb. A lot of the other controls have been moved from the home screen of the GUI and can now be found in this advanced tab. In the model tab, you're going to have some control over the mic placement, the string sounds, and even some of the more dynamic sounds like the hammer and the sustain pedal. Then over in the effects tab, we've got some of our normal effects controls like an equalizer, a compressor, and a more fleshed out reverb. So that's how the plugin looks, but let's have a listen to how it actually sounds. Next up, we're going to take a look at the changes that Arturia made to the Prophet synth, and in particular, we're going to be looking at the Prophet VS. In previous versions, I didn't really use this synth an awful lot, but I feel like this update is definitely going to change that. This version of the Prophet synth is going to give you a bit more control over the 4 wavetables that make up your sound, and overall, everything just looks a bit more digital. We also have some basic controls over the filter, an arpeggiator, and some voice control features. But the advanced tab is where this version of the V collection is really going to shine. This section is going to give us a more visual way of looking at how our envelopes and modulators are actually affecting the sound. Each one of these tabs is going to give you a visual representation of exactly what's happening to the sound, with this nice helpful little circle that's moving around to give you more of a visual representation. We also have a modulations tab where you can access some of the matrix settings. And lastly, we have this totally overhauled effects section. This section's got 3 slots where you can add some of your favourite effects like reverbs, delays, and chorus. Some of these old plugins have been given a new lease of life with this new updated effects section, and I think that some of the sounds that you're going to be able to get out of these plugins now are going to be next level. So now I'm just going to flick through some of the presets from the Prophet VS so you can hear how it sounds. Now we're going to move on to the new plugins, and I'll start with the Korg MS-20. This iconic synth has been emulated brilliantly by Arturia, and we've been given the option to have this play in monophonic like the original, or we can now play up to 6 voices at the same time. Now I'm going to be totally honest, I'm usually switched off by plugins like this that have a lot of dials and wires, but when you actually start messing around with this plugin, some of the sounds that you can get are crazy. It's not really one that I'm going to be using a lot with the genres that I make, but I feel like anybody that produces any type of electrical music is going to love this plugin. This plugin also features a sequencer window, and then we have this same effects section again. You'll soon become familiar with this effects section as it's featured in a lot of the new updated versions of the plugins. So now I'm just going to flick through the presets so you can have a listen for yourself. So let's move on and take a look at the SQ80 synth, which is another brand new addition to this version of the V collection. This plugin is a crosswave synthesizer that uses 3 oscillators to produce some really nice sounds. A lot of these Arturia synths lacked a visual indication of what the sound waves look like as well as what they're doing. However, in this update, some of the plugins now offer this synthesis window where we have a bit more control over the oscillators, the filters, as well as the LFOs and envelopes. I actually like this window a lot more because it offers a bit more of a universal view that could be compared to Serum or Vital. Then next to this synthesis window, again we have this nice new effects section where you can add up to 4 effects. Overall, this is a solid plugin and I can definitely see myself using this for ambient sounds and maybe some basses too. So now we're going to take a look at what are, in my opinion, the most exciting additions to the new V collection. And I'm talking about the augmented strings and the augmented voices plugins. Some of you might already have access to the intro version of augmented strings. I had the same version before I purchased the V collection and I thought that itself was a game changer. This update takes that plugin and adds over 150 new presets to it, as well as opening up the advanced tab where you can shape your sound and even make your own sounds. As you can see here, we've got 2 layers where you can choose your sampled sound alongside with the synthesized sound. We also have some controls over the ADSR settings, and looking down towards the bottom we have this section which looks very similar to Pigments, where you can control your LFOs and envelopes. Up at the top of the plugin we have this section where you can edit the modulation settings, you can add arpeggiators, and then we have an effects section too. And lastly, on the right hand side we have this macros tab where of course you can add macros. So as you can see, there's been a lot added to this updated version of augmented strings, but let's take a listen to how some of those new presets sound. The newest addition to the augmented series of plugins is augmented voices, and this one is really good too. The plugin itself works the exact same as augmented strings, where we have a sampler side and a synth side, and then we have this dial in the middle to mix between the two of them. Coming into the advanced tab, you're going to see that everything looks the same with the 2 layers where you can pick your sounds. The modulation tab, arpeggiator and effects sections are all pretty much the same as well. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with this plugin, building presets for vocal layers, and it's all round just a nice addition to the augmented series and to the V collection. So let's check out what it actually sounds like. So that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of the new additions to the V collection. I personally think I'm going to be using the augmented strings and vocals plugins a lot in my productions. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure to hit the thumbs up before you leave, and if you're new to the channel, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. Massive shout out to anybody that made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.